Horizon Chance, home to Reacts, and this is why Apple fails in India and why it matters by the channel PolyMatter. As Apple turns to rising prices to grow its revenue. Really? Apple needs to grow its revenue? It's already making way too much money. I mean, that iPhone has already made way too much money than any phone should. They need to grow its revenue, really? Emerging markets like India offer huge potential growth, but the iPhone is failing to capture it. Yeah, I'll tell you why it's failing to capture. It's ridiculously high priced in India. First of all, I'm not saying it's Apple's fault. It could be the government's all the taxes and things here. But regardless of all that, Apple is way too costly. I mean, way too costly. I mean, money is not that big of an issue for me. If I want something, I would definitely buy it. I bought a super bike just now, 17 lakh worth of bike. That's in US dollar. What is that? Like 21, 23, something like that. Yeah, I think $20,000 to $23,000, something like that. I paid that for the bike. I think in USA the same bike gets sold for $16,000 or $17,000. So yeah, I paid that much here. So it's not paying money is an issue for me. But there's a limit. I would not senselessly just spend money onto the things that doesn't require that much money. I mean, the Apples here cost like 1.3, 1.5 lakhs even. It is not worth that much money. Apple's not that good. And the same competitor, Samsung phone, is like 1.1 lakh, 1.2 lakhs even. There is a major money difference between those two. And the cheapest Apple phone that they sell is still at 70,000. While at 30 to 40,000, you could get something like OnePlus and even really good phones, flagship caliber phones. And this is not even a flagship phone by Apple. It's a budget from Apple, which costs 70,000 or something like that. So majority of people are not going to buy it. Even people like me. I mean, I can buy it, but I'm not gonna, because as soon as I buy it, I'll feel shitty. Like, why the hell did I wasted this much money? So it's way too overpriced. That's why it's failing. But it's majority people, majority people, even if they are going to spend good money, they're going to spend like 30, 40,000 rupees here. And the budget Apple phone costs 60 to 70,000. So yeah, that's why it's probably failing.
This video is sponsored by Brilliant. The first 200 to use the link in the description get 20% off the annual premium subscription. India is home to 1.3 billion people. In just 5 years, it'll pass China and become the most populous country on the planet. And it shows. The streets are chaotic, markets overcrowded, and its economy bursting with potential. While it's still decades behind on basic infrastructure like schools and sanitation, India's GDP is among the fastest growing in the world. Which, for companies, means 1.3 billion.
You see the conditions like that you just saw. You really think somebody's going to pay Apple money here? I mean, come on.
Customers, many of whom are using the internet for the first time ever. Where Amazon, Google, and Uber struggle to enter and compete with locals like Baidu and Alibaba in China, they've largely succeeded in India.
Well, that's not surprising. China is a communist country. The government there needs to control things. So they are not going to let Amazon, Google run wild. So obviously it's not going to succeed there. They're going to have companies that they can control. India is a democratic country, free country. So obviously Amazon, Google is going to thrive here. I don't think Uber thrives here. Uber Eats is big, but not that big. It's fine. Uber, I'm not so sure Uber is that big, but Amazon, Google is definitely giant here. I don't remember anything I don't order from Amazon. Most things, 99% of things I buy anywhere is probably from Amazon. Because it's so easy, it's so convenient, it's better. There are lots of things that I can't find in the local market here that I can find on Amazon. So obviously I'm going to buy from Amazon, and it's even cheaper. Google, everybody uses it. Right now we are at Google, YouTube, this is Google. Everybody uses Google all the time. So yeah, Amazon, Google is big everywhere, so is in India. Uber, I don't think that much.
One big exception. Apple is almost nowhere to be found. The iPhone is an unstoppable money-making machine, more successful than Boeing's 737, Toyota's Corolla, and the entire
Apple iPhone is more successful than Toyota Corollas, Boeing 737, and they want to grow their revenue. How greedy can you be, man? This is why also this is one of the few percentage that I don't buy Apple, because I hate them too for some things like this.
Entire Star Wars franchise. And yet here it only commands about 1% of the whole smartphone market. Just in the last year, its government threatened to ban the iPhone over a disagreement about privacy. Apple reportedly lost 3 key Indian executives, and it failed to get approval for an official retail store. It's safe to say things aren't going so well. So what makes India so different, and what does it mean for the future of Apple? This is the sales miracle known as the iPhone. Apple went from selling 1 million in 2007 to 11 in 2008, all the way to a record-breaking 231 million in 2015. Turns out people like bigger phones. The trend couldn't be more clear. But then, something changed. In the last 3 years, sales have been flat. And if we...
Chinese companies rose up basically. All Xiaomi's and OnePluses and different type of thing. So yeah.
Look at all smartphones, you can see Apple is no exception. What was 40 or 50 or even 60% growth has now become 0. Now, if flat means consistently selling 200 million premium devices year after year, well, that doesn't sound so bad. The iPhone isn't declining, it's just not growing. But Apple, of course, is a public company, and the stock market is based on the expectation of growth. It's not enough to make an unbelievable amount of money. It needs to make an unbelievable amount more than last year. Which brings us back to the basics. There are 3 ways Apple can...
That capitalism right there, that's gonna fuck things up. It's not enough to sell in major amounts, you need to grow. I mean, you can't just grow all the time, there's going to be a limit. I mean, come on.
Sell an iPhone. Someone buying their first smartphone, someone switching from a competitor, or someone upgrading their current iPhone. The first 2 have been incredibly fruitful and are still responsible for millions of sales. But there are only so many humans on Earth, and at least for now, Apple is not in the business of making more. Which brings us to the 3rd category, the customers it already has. For the average person, 2-year upgrades are becoming 3 or 4 or whenever this phone dies upgrades. Premium smartphone companies are in the business of making better, longer-lasting devices that will entice more people to upgrade. But that also makes them less eager to upgrade in the future. It's a tough game to play. We've reached a point where most people are mostly happy with what they have. In some ways, Apple is too successful.
It's not necessarily true. That's not how technologies work. People are willing to spend money. It's not that issue. I mean, you know, in India it's different. Like I said, it's way overpriced than even it's in the, you know, the foreign markets, basically in US and everywhere. In India, it's costs way more. I don't, you know, I understand it's not Apple's fault, government taxes things, but still, in the end, it's costs way more than it costs in the US and everywhere. So people are not richer in India than USA. It's opposite. So how are they going to pay that much money? So obviously, it's gonna fail here. Whereas overall, the only reason people are not, you know, buying it every new generation is because there's nothing much to offer. Bionic A12 to Bionic A13, there's not much of a difference in the chip. Unless it's a leap or some new technology gets introduced, people are not going to buy it. Even if it's just a, you know, stupid gadget, people might still be like, okay, you know what, that's good, I want it. That's what Chinese companies do, like Xiaomi's and things. They don't upgrade their chips that much. If anything, they use the budget chips on their phones, 7 series Snapdragons and things like that, not even 8 series in lots of phones. But they introduce different type of stupid gadgets that's just fun, that basically pulls people in. Like, you know, in the very budget phone, like cost like it's nothing. It has a, you know, really bad chip, it has really bad camera and everything's bad, but it has a super AMOLED screen where everybody just gets IPS. So people are like, oh, for that money, I'm gonna buy an AMOLED screen. So, you know, techniques like that is what drives the market. If you're just gonna have one drive, like everything best, and not gonna try new gadgets even if it's stupid, people are just gonna see what's the difference between new model, this model, just a bit of more processing power. I don't play game all the time, I don't need that, so obviously people are not gonna buy a new phone.
for its own good. Today, it may sell the same number of phones, but more profit is being made, thanks to the higher prices of the 10 and 10s. Plus, existing users are valuable in more ways than one. We buy Apple Music, iCloud storage, Apple Watch, AirPods, and soon Apple streaming video. So this graph, the company argues, can only say so much. That's why it no longer publishes the number of phones sold. Sure, sales may be flat, but the average selling price is anything but. The last 2 years have proven people are willing to pay $1,100, $1,200, $1,400. In other words, this strategy is working. But it can't go up forever. Somewhere there's a limit. And
see, this is where I hit the roadblock. If I can charge a price for something and people would pay it, I'm gonna charge that price. Yes, you could do that, but people like me starts to think that you're an a-hole. I don't like the Apple for this reason. It can charge $1,500 and there are people who would apparently buy it for that just because it's Apple, because it's a, I guess, social statement. Like, look at that, I have an Apple phone. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like those kind of things. I don't care about what people think to begin with, so I'm not gonna buy a phone because what people, oh, look at that, he has an iPhone. I don't care about that. So, but people just, where Apple can easily sell a phone for $1,100, now sells for $1,500 and $1,600 just because they can. I'm lost. Even if the Apple iPhone is so incredibly good, that's where I'm lost, because that technique is just bad. I don't like when business uses technique like that.
That's why emerging markets are, if not existential, at least very important for the future of the company. So Apple, in need of customers, meet India, in need of phones. 63,000 Indians are pulled out of extreme poverty every day, and companies can hardly wait. Now, in terms of raw GDP, India ranks...
The sentence was so... Yeah, 63,000 people gets out of extreme poverty, and companies cannot wait to take all that money back.
An impressive 6th place, right behind the United Kingdom. But adjusted per capita, it's only $1,939 to China's $8,827. Meanwhile, the cheaper iPhone XR starts at $749. And that's if you're a lucky American.
Yeah.
In India, the price is 77,000 rupees, or around $1,100.
Damn, that's even higher than I thought. Look at this shit. $1,100 instead of $750. I'm supposed to pay what, $300 more, $300 plus more than an American pays. First of all, economy here is, we already get less paid than any average American, so we are not rich here compared to America. That's obvious. I mean, if you compare two countries, if you compare USA and India, it's not even, you don't even have to think. Obviously, Indians, are more poorer than Americans. At the same time, we are supposed to pay more for the Apple. Of course, Apple's gonna struggle. Same things with the Harley Davidson here. I had Harley Davidson. I didn't like it much, especially for the money I paid, so I sold it off. So it's things like that. I mean, why would I pay that much money?
$100. And again, that's the cheaper model. The 10s, on the other hand, is upwards of $1,420. Here, Apple's strategy of raising prices is backfiring. An estimated 75% of smartphones are sold for less than $250, and 95% less than $500. For most people, the iPhone is simply too expensive. Even the much older iPhone 6 and SE are sold at relatively high prices. For that kind of money, customers expect a brand new phone, not a 3 or 5-year-old one. Most Indians don't even buy smartphones, but
by the way, for 22,000 right now, there are, companies, Xiaomi and different companies' phones with certain specs you could buy with the flagship Snapdragon 860. There's a phone for just 19,000 rupees that has a Snapdragon 860. I mean, yeah, that's like 855 plus, right? 860. So that's a flagship processor for that money. Why would they buy an old generation Apple at that point?
Basic feature phones like the Geo phone, which is effectively free with a small refundable deposit. So the iPhone is a tiny sliver of the premium market, which is only a small segment of smartphone sales. which account for less than half of all phone sales. There's just not that much pie left. Now, Apple has never purely been driven by unit sales or market share. For the most part, it's just not interested in selling to all price points. But this market share is barely even noticeable. Unfortunately, price is only one part of the problem. It also lacks brand recognition, is affected by a weaker currency, plus tariffs, and even for those that can afford it, the iPhone in India just isn't as good a product.
Yeah, it's not tariff is the biggest issue, like I said. I mean, that major difference, like 30+% of the difference in pricing, that's the issue. Even if people can pay it, I mean, people are going to think like everybody in the world, in US and everywhere, people are paying $750. I'm supposed to pay near $1,100. Why would I pay more like that? Even if I have money, it feels stupid to spend that money, even if a person can. That basically deters all the customers. Like, yeah, screw that. I'd rather buy a Samsung or something. You know, one might say that Apple is extremely reliable, but you know, a good enough alternative company, if I can buy 3 phones for the price of Apple, does reliability even matter? If a phone basically goes away, I can buy 2 more like that rather than Apple. So why would I buy Apple? That's the mentality here. It's way too overpriced.
Lacks Apple Pay, Apple Maps is, let's say, limited, and Siri still has trouble understanding local accents. Some of Apple's most undervalued assets are its
Hell, I have a hard time reading that. मैं अभी भी यहाँ कैसे पूरा हूँ? I don't even know what that means.
It's over 500 retail stores across 19 countries. It builds giant glass cubes, renovates historic theaters, and practically defies the laws of physics. Not because it's cool, well, not just because it's cool, but because they make insane amounts of money.
Yeah.
No other company makes more money per square foot of retail space. And if you have any doubt about that, I dare you to walk through one without bumping into anyone. But all this means nothing in India. Here, phones are sold in small local shops where brands have little to no control.
That's not a phone shop, that's a repair shop. India's, you know, I understand India's poor, all the images that he saw here, India's poor, but not at the scale that he's showing. There are damn big ass showrooms, basically. Major showroom with glasses and everything that sells the phone. It would look just the same as any other European country, it would look identical. And they have literal sponsor, they literally have partnership with the main company. So it's a, you know, company setup type of shop. Like what company, if let's say Sony showroom, Sony would tell the owner like how you should build a showroom to reflect our basically image. So it would look the same as it would look in Europe. Not this is a repair shop.
Not the best conditions for a company which regulates the height of its tables. And at least for now, it legally can't open a store. The Indian government requires that any foreign-owned company buy at least 30% of its materials within the country before opening a retail store. In response, Apple has started manufacturing the SE and 6S in India, which it may soon do for newer phones as well. In the meantime, Chinese brands like OnePlus, Oppo, and Vivo carefully target the Indian market by producing low-cost, locally manufactured devices. Ultimately, the reason Apple can't compete is simple. It's not willing to adapt. The company has all the resources in the world, but unless it makes a significant change in strategy, India will never be the next China. The iPhone accounts for over 60% of Apple's total revenue. To continue growth, it has no choice but to do what Apple does best: destroy its own thriving product with an entirely new category. Since reaching a $1 trillion market cap, Apple stock has been unusually shaky. Sometimes this is...
Apple does that best, really. New product that shatters the old product. iPhone is the biggest thing. Before that was, I think, iPod. Not at that scale. What other product even come close? What you talking about? iPhone is the only thing that is basically revolutionary, because it was the first proper smartphone. Everything just followed it. So of course it has this heritage feeling. and Apple is still top of the line, like beating every other company by pure performance and everything. Obviously prices are even higher than that, but still. So that's why Apple works. But basically Apple needs to create specific products to countries like India, Indonesia and things like that, where people cannot pay the price for proper Apple iPhones like that. So some form of budget iPhones. They could release some small form like budget iPhone budget, but it's not really budget, comparing the economy here. So they really need to make a budget iPhone, and put key specs in, like you could buy a flagship level phone for 45,000 at a time. I don't know when it was, a few years ago. At the same time, Apple sold a budget iPhone for 70,000. And it had a 720p screen. I mean, 10,000 rupees phone had 1080p screens. Why would I buy 70,000 rupees phone and get a 720p screen? So, I'm going to look at the screen all the time. That is the one thing I need uncompromised. So Apple needs to realize which is the main key specs I need to spec into, basically, and create a budget phone that people would buy. Otherwise, India is not going to work.
Significant. Sometimes it's normal market fluctuations, and you can tell the difference by understanding ideas like statistical variance, which you can learn with Brilliant.
Anyways, this armchair historian, his sounds really similar to him. I don't see any reference to him, so I don't know if it's the same guy. Yeah, people, go to brilliant.org/PolyMatter and support this channel. Yeah, this was a good informative video, even though Apple's not gonna work here if it doesn't change. That's for damn sure. I mean, obviously, India is this massive country with billion people. There are very rich people too, but majority of people are not rich. But But even the rich people, like I said, even if they want to buy, they're gonna think like, I'm not a sucker. I'm not gonna pay more like that. Even more at that scale, like 35% increase in price. I'm not gonna pay that for Apple. Screw that. And they're just gonna buy a Samsung. That's what happens usually. Alright people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the reaction I did. There's a link in the description. Check out the cast playlist, check out the end cards, and I'll see you next time.